everyone, welcome to our deep dive today. We're tackling something I know a lot of you are super curious about, and honestly, it's something I think we can all relate to, at least a little bit. We're diving into making the most of your doctor's appointments, because sometimes those appointments can feel a little overwhelming, am I right?
Absolutely. It's really easy to feel, I don't know, maybe a little flustered or unsure in those situations. But advocating for your own health, now that's important.
You got it. And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about. And honestly, prepping for this, even I learned a thing or two. There's like a real strategy to making sure you're getting the most out of those conversations with your doctor.
Yeah, it really is. It's all about having that clear communication, that back and forth, and really feeling like you're part of the team when it comes to your own health.
100%. And one thing that really stood out to me is this. You have the right to, pump the brakes a little. Ever feel like you're getting rushed out of the doctor's office before you can even remember half your questions?
Oh, yeah.
Well, guess what? You're not alone. You're in the driver's seat when it comes to your own health, and you have every right to ask those questions, even if they seem, I don't know, kind of small or, dare I say it, silly.
It's funny. So many people, they downplay their own concerns. They think, oh, I don't want to waste the doctor's time.
Yeah.
But you know what? Open communication, that's like the foundation of good health care. So if something doesn't make sense, if you need clarification, no matter how small, you absolutely have the right to speak up.
So true. It's not just about, getting answers checked off a list. It's about walking out of that appointment feeling good about your care plan and like you're really part of the decision making.
Exactly. And never forget, if you're ever feeling dismissed, rushed, or like you're just not being heard, it's totally okay to get a second opinion. You are your own best advocate, remember that.
Love it. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask, right? Okay, but let's be real. Even with the best questions prepped and ready, sometimes those appointments can feel like a blur. And that brings us to our next point, the power of prepping like you mean it. You wouldn't walk into a big, important meeting without jotting down a few notes, would you?
You're right. It's all about having that game plan. So imagine this. You, cool as a cucumber, walking into your appointment feeling totally prepared because you've got your secret weapon, your handy-dandy pre-appointment checklist.
Yeah.
Think of it like your own personal health cheat sheet.
Love that. No more of those shoot, I meant to ask about that moments on the drive home. So what kind of things should we have on this ultimate pre-appointment checklist?
Well, the source we're looking at breaks it down into three main areas: symptoms, tests, and treatments. This is your chance to lay it all out, get it all out there. Are you dealing with any new symptoms, anything unusual? Write them down. Any specific tests you're curious about, jot them down. Any treatments you've heard about that you want to discuss with your doctor, jot them down.
It's like creating your own, personalized health agenda.
Yeah.
Speaking of maximizing that FaceTime with your doctor, I gotta ask about something I think we all struggle with sometimes. Active listening. It's tough, right? It's so easy to get distracted, especially when we have a million questions running through our heads.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
It's a real skill, and it takes practice, especially in those kinds of situations, where you're maybe a little anxious.
Totally. So any tips for us on how to be a better listener when we're in that doctor's office?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to really focus on what your doctor's saying. Let them actually finish their thought. Try to resist that urge to just jump in with questions right away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because chances are they've thought about this, they've structured their explanation in a way that might actually already answer some of your questions.
That's a good point. I know I'm guilty of interrupting sometimes. I get so in my head about what I want to ask next. But you're right. It makes way more sense to just hear them out first.
Exactly. And there's another part of active listening, too, that I think sometimes gets overlooked. And it's especially important when, your doctor's writing notes or maybe that all-important prescription.
Oh, right.
Minimize those distractions because that little piece of paper, that prescription, that's basically your treatment roadmap.
It's true. Never really thought about it like that.
It's like the key to everything.
Right.
Right. So you want to make sure everything on it is crystal clear.
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate to speak up if you need something repeated or, clarified, or even if you just need a sec to process, just say, hold on a second, let me think about that for a minute.
Yeah. That's huge. And speaking of prescriptions, that actually perfectly brings us to our next point, which I gotta say really surprised me. The source we're looking at today, they call it prime question time. And it's that moment when you actually have that prescription in your hand.
Oh, that's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's like that physical piece of paper. It's like you said, it's like a permission slip to like, all right, now I can really take control and ask these questions.
It's true, yeah. Like having that tangible thing in your hand just might be that little extra push. Some people need to, really speak up and ask those last minute questions.
Exactly. It's like a visual cue. Like, okay, this is it. Anything and everything. What's the dosage, potential side effects? Are there any alternative options? I mean, this is your moment to really advocate for yourself and make sure you're, 100% on board with the plan.
This is so good. I love this. It's all about like feeling really confident and informed, which honestly I think can be extra tricky when it comes to, more, what's the word, delicate topics maybe.
Yeah, you're right. And the source, they really address this head on, actually. They stress that, for a good doctor, truly no health issue is uncomfortable. Nothing's off limits. They've heard it all. And at the end of the day, their priority is you, your well-being.
Which is, of course, how it should be. But I can definitely see how some people, they might still hesitate to bring up things that feel personal or, maybe a little sensitive.
Oh, totally understandable. And that's why it's so important to remember that confidentiality, I mean, that's like the bedrock of the doctor-patient relationship. The source actually uses the words judgment and personal information.
Mm.
And I think that's really important here because it's like you can share openly without fear of judgment. You don't have to worry about your information being, mishandled.
It's so key. And it makes such a difference just knowing that you're in a safe space to share whatever's going on.
Exactly.
Now, okay, let's talk about something that I think, I'll admit it, I do it, you probably do it, everybody does it. Turning to Dr. Google, turning to the internet for health information.
It's like the double-edged sword of our time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's amazing the access we have to information now.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, oh my gosh, it can be so overwhelming.
It's true, yeah.
And you don't know what's accurate half the time.
Right. It's like the Wild West out there when it comes to health advice. So how do we, be smarter about navigating the online world, especially when it comes to something as important as our health?
I think it's really as simple as this. Ask your doctor. Don't be afraid to say, hey, are there any reliable online resources you recommend? Like, what websites do you trust? They can point you in the right direction to, credible places where you can do your own research, but do it safely.
Right, yeah. It's like getting a curated reading list, but for your health.
Exactly.
So much better than falling down, those rabbit holes of questionable medical blogs.
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it.
So we've talked about a lot here today, but I think there's one kind of misconception that I still hear a lot. And it's this idea that, the consultation, the appointment, it ends when you walk out of that exam room, that's it. You're done.
Oh, I know, right. And thankfully, the source really emphasizes that. No, it's not a one-time transaction. It's not like you go to the ATM, you get your cash, and you're done. It's a relationship,
It's so true. It's more like an ongoing dialogue. Right?
Exactly. If you walk out of that office and you have questions later, or maybe something comes up, a few days later, don't hesitate to call. You are the CEO of your own health. Remember that.
I love that, the CEO of your own health. It's so true. And it really highlights how important it is to feel empowered to advocate for yourself.
Right. You have more control than you think.
Absolutely. And that actually, it makes me think about another point the source made about how important it is to try to cultivate a real relationship with your healthcare providers.
Yeah, that really stuck with me too.
It's not just about checking a box.
It's not a transaction.
Exactly.
It's about a true partnership built on, mutual respect, open communication.
100%. And I think that's where all of these little tips and tricks and strategies we've been talking about today, that's where they come in. It's about, like you said, being proactive, being prepared, being engaged.
It's about understanding that you and your healthcare team, you're on the same side. You're working toward the same goal, which is, the best possible outcome for you. Exactly, yeah. So as we kind of wrap things up here, is there one big takeaway, something you really hope our listeners will walk away with today?
I think if folks listening can just remember one thing, it's that they have power. You have power. By being informed, by being prepared, by advocating for yourself, you can take those doctor's appointments, which, let's be real, sometimes can feel a little scary, a little intimidating, and you can turn them into something that's actually empowering.
That's such a good point. It doesn't have to be this like big scary thing.
Exactly.
It can be a positive experience, a productive experience.
So this has been so insightful. We've talked about prepping for your appointments, asking the right questions, even navigating those like trickier conversations and remembering that it's an ongoing dialogue. This isn't just for your next doctor's appointment. This is for, a lifetime of feeling empowered when it comes to your health.
And who knows, maybe the next time you have a doctor's appointment, you might even find yourself like looking forward to it a little.
I love that. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right.
All right, well, on that note, that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and take good care.